Right now in South Korea, a massive silent war is unfolding, and the casualties aren't falling on a battlefield, they are falling in the living rooms of expensive apartments and the aisles of luxury department stores. It is the strangest thing you will ever witness. Imagine walking into a shop, seeing a price tag for $1 billion on a single half-eaten sandwich, and watching a line of guys stretching around the block, all fighting for a chance to pay for it. You'd think they were crazy, right? You'd ask yourself if they've lost their minds or if there's something in the water. But then you look closer and see that these guys have actually spent years studying how the sandwich shop is scamming them. They have all the data, they know the sandwich is old, they know the price is fake, and yet, the moment the shopkeeper smiles at them, they reach for their wallets and say, well, maybe the sandwich is different. It is a spectacular, ironic disaster where the men are fully aware of the trap, yet they keep jumping into it like it's an Olympic sport. But why would anyone actually demand this kind of price for so little in return? Why would a group of people collectively decide that they are worth the moon and the stars while offering nothing but their presence? To understand this, you have to look at the cold, hard logic of the market. People aren't treated like people anymore. They are treated like assets in a high-stakes trade. In this corner of the world, relationships have been stripped of any warmth and turned into a brutal calculation of greed. A specific group of women has been raised in a culture that acts like a giant factory for entitlement. They've been fed a steady diet of glossy dramas and social media posts that tell them they are royalty simply for existing. They aren't looking for a partner, they are looking for a host. They want a man who sits in the top tiny percentage of earners, someone who can fund a life of luxury and status, while they contribute absolutely nothing to the actual partnership. It's not about love, it's about a hostile takeover of a man's bank account. They enter the marriage market at 30 years old, after they've had their fun and their market value starts to dip, and they look for a safe guy to pay for the rest of their lives. It's like trying to sell a used car with 1,000,000 miles on it for the price of a brand new Ferrari, and somehow the system has convinced everyone that this is normal. So, the next logical question is, why does society allow this to happen? Why isn't anyone shouting that the emperor has no clothes? Well, because the entire culture is addicted to appearances. Everything is about how things look from the outside. If you're a parent, your daughter marrying a high-earning provider is a trophy for you. If you're a husband, having a princess on your arm is supposed to tell the world you've made it. We've created a mess where a wedding isn't a union of two souls, but a merger and acquisition where one side brings all the capital and the other side brings all the demands. Society has built this specific context because it values status more than sustainability. They've built a world where a man is expected to provide a luxury home in the middle of the most expensive city on earth just to get a yes at the altar. It's a 19th century expectation of a dowry mixed with a 21st century salary, and the math simply doesn't add up for anyone with a working brain. But then you have to ask, what happened when these demands actually started to get met? What happens when you give someone exactly what they asked for, even when it's ridiculous? This is where the hypocrisy really starts to sting. These women demanded independence and equality in the workplace, and they got it through quotas and special treatment. But the moment the check comes for dinner or the bill comes for the apartment, that independence vanishes faster than a ghost. They want the power of a modern woman but the protected status of a medieval lady. And the result? A total backfire. The men who were supposed to be the hosts are finally waking up. They're looking at the contract and realizing it's a death sentence. The legal system is rigged so that even if a man provides everything, he can lose half of it in a heartbeat to someone who contributed zero. This isn't a partnership, it's an economic slaughter. And as the truth spreads, the hosts are simply leaving the building. Is it any wonder that the marriage rate is crashing into the basement? When you realize the bridge you're walking on was designed to collapse the moment you reach the middle, you stop walking. The men are starting to see that the princess they were promised is actually a parasite that will drain them dry and then complain that the drain wasn't gold-plated. They are opting out entirely, choosing to stay single or looking across the borders for partners who actually understand the concept of give and take. It's a survival move. They've realized that being alone is infinitely better than being an atom for someone who doesn't even respect them. The most hilarious and dark part of this whole situation is the comparison to the rest of the world. In other places, a partner who is mentally unstable or toxic is someone you run away from as fast as possible. But in this local climate, the standards have dropped so low that even a toxic partner from another country would be seen as a saint. Why? Because at least that toxic partner might understand that you have to offer something, anything, to keep a relationship going. The local princess archetype has become so entitled that she doesn't even think she needs to be nice. She just needs to be there, and you should be grateful for the privilege of paying her bills. It's a level of arrogance that is honestly hard to wrap your head around unless you see it in action. What does the future look like for a place that treats its men like disposable batteries and its women like fragile ornaments that can't be touched? It looks like a ghost town we are watching a demographic car crash in slow motion. These princesses who refuse to settle for anything less than the top 4% are going to find themselves very lonely when their parents' money runs out and no host is willing to take the bait. They'll be sitting in tiny, cramped rooms, wondering why the fairy tale didn't come true, while the men they look down on are off living peaceful lives, free from the burden of funding someone else's delusion. The economic slaughter is becoming so common that marriage is now viewed with the same fear you'd have for a mountain of gambling debt. The whole thing is like a man building a beautiful bridge with his own hands, sweating and bleeding to make it strong. He invites a woman to cross it with him, but as they walk, he hears a scratching sound. He looks back and realizes she's using a saw to cut the very cables holding them up. She expects the bridge to stay in the air by magic while she destroys the support system of respect and effort. She wants the destination without the journey, the reward without the risk, and the house without the home. The bitter medicine that men are taking right now, the realization that the whole thing is a scam, is the only thing saving them from that long drop into the water. It tastes terrible because it kills the dream of romance, but it's the only way to stay alive in a system designed to eat you alive. You have to laugh at the sheer absurdity of it all. We are living in an era where intelligence is defined by how well you can avoid the person you're supposed to love. It's a world where the most romantic thing you can do for yourself is to stay as far away from the altar as possible. The system tried to decouple responsibility from reward, and all it got was a society where nobody wants to play the game anymore. The Princess Factory is still running, churning out more entitled people every day, but the customers have all left the shop. They've realized that the sandwich isn't worth $1 billion, and it never was. They'd rather go hungry than be cheated one more time. In the end, the biggest irony is that by demanding everything, these princesses ended up with nothing. They pushed the hosts so hard that the hosts finally broke, and now there's nobody left to pay for the dream. The bridge is down, the shop is empty, and the fairy tale has turned into a cautionary story that will be told for generations. It's a cynical, messy, and completely avoidable disaster. But that's what happens when you try to build a life on the bones of someone else's labor. You end up alone, in a cold room, holding a price tag for a life you can no longer afford. Fuel the truth at Dating in Korea. Support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.